This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast, where, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes and is not limited to my boy Tortua.
Hello.
What's poppin', sidekick?
What's
number
going
two?
on? Is it number two sidekick?
Number two sidekick. Like, you just, like, you're
That
on
make
deck.
me Berkey sidekick? Does it like go like in a circle? Like, so that makes Landon my sidekick?
I ain't shit about shit. I ain't no one's sidekick.
On God.
What's poppin', Bert?
I don't know.
I'm scared. I want to go home.
I don't know.
We're on try number two today.
Oh, right? Yeah, it's okay.
Well, you did
know?
much better in the intro, I got to
Thanks.
tell you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
There is a very deep-seated part of me that really wanted him to fuck up on purpose this time.
Perhaps we should do a practice run every day.
I mean,
Not a bad idea.
this is practice run number 330.
5.
5?
Yeah.
Wow.
6, technically, if you
Well.
count the deleted stream that's just gone out.
We also have a couple of dark ones, so.
That's true. That is true.
We've had some dark times on this podcast.
We had to scrap the first episode ever because hood lawyer Conrad was Googling the wrong name.
Well, no, I told you that I don't know who this is, but I just said it to you. Like, do you
I appreciate that he sticks to that story.
I'm always going to stick to that story because that's the goddamn story.
Totally sticks to that
It's
story.
the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
God forbid you're
Someone-
responsible for any of your fucking actions.
God help me.
It was a similar name.
Oh my God. That was a year and a half ago already?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Oh
long
my
ago.
God.
We've been here every day for a while, but
Most of us.
I mean,
We're like 30 episodes away from like an actual full year of podcasting.
How?
we were like one episode away from me pulling the plug.
Yeah, but we're always one
This is
episode
it. This is our
away.
last show,
That-
everyone. Thank
we-
you for coming.
we literally started that way.
Matt, did we get any spoilers for the cash game you played yesterday?
Yeah, I can give.
Actually, good, bad, middle?
I'm pleased.
Well,
well, that's what I.
Or is Poker Go going to come after you?
no, I don't think they mind. It was a very interesting dynamic. We ended up playing 100-100, and the feature players, I guess, were me, Justin Young, and Airball.
Did you go nose to nose with him?
He was to my immediate right and bought in for $10,000.
Oh my God.
and
Really?
Folded for 4 hours before leaving early.
Wow.
It
How
was
the mighty have fallen.
So it was different than the last time you two were on Poker Go together.
it was wild. Oh, Brandon Adams was in the lineup too.
He wasn't chugging wine and
No,
burping in people's faces.
no. They were drinking sake and he opted out. But I mean, I just don't understand. I don't understand any of it, to be honest.
What's going on?
I just don't get it. I mean, he was me in the heads up match. He just didn't say a fucking word the entire show.
You're talking about Airball?
Yeah. We played one all-in pot for a small amount of money. I won't spoil the outcomes, but yeah, once he left, the game got fucking off the hinges. Like, it turned into what I can only describe as your typical 100-100 private game here in Vegas. And
This was still streamed, or this was still filmed, right?
Yeah, the last
Okay,
2 hours was maybe like last 3 hours or so. Just off the rails. 2 huge winners in the game, up combined almost 200K.
Wow.
Everybody else lost. So tons of action. We played stand-up game a couple times. We played bomb pot. I am a bomb pot god, by the way. Just to let you
Or
know.
some people are just a little worse. At it.
Well, that's what makes me the god.
Did you threaten to torture anyone's mother?
No.
That's good.
Nothing like that happened. The last 2 hours was a ton of action. I expect when this gets broken down into because it wasn't live streamed, so they'll never put out the full 7 hours of footage.
Right.
I expect when this gets broken down into episodes, it'll probably be 1, maybe 2 episodes, and it'll almost be exclusively the last 2 hours. I don't think very much happened at all in the first. There were a couple hands. Joel, I think I've played with him once or twice. He's He's kind of a regular in the Bellagio Aria games, but he's like a businessman. He doesn't play professionally. He did really well. Had to leave early. He had a couple cooler hands versus myself and Justin. Well, the one versus me wasn't a cooler. I was just straight gambling, but nevertheless,
Shocker.
outside of him, he probably won like 30K, I guess, in the first 4 hours, 3 hours or so, and then had to leave. Nobody else was winning at that point, and only 2 other people won thereafter for like I said, a total of almost 200K. So everybody gets obliterated. It was a ton of fucking action for about 2 hours or so. A lot of highlight hands. I don't want to spoil too much, but it does beg the question, and we kind of mentioned this. I can't remember if I mentioned this on air or off air with Jeff, but we spoke about it a little bit yesterday. Stream games are in a bit of a, let's call it a tough place.
Conundrum?
No, because there isn't a question that they haven't answered at this point. It's more so how sustainable are they? So, we saw Live at the Bike flourish for the better part of a decade and a half, but they were the only game in town. They didn't really have anything rivaling them. It was them as a live stream and then televised poker. And there was a huge separation between Live at the Bike and high stakes poker.
Right.
Live at the Bike's original product was basically running 5 days a week, and they had consistent games that you could count on. They had the 10-20 whale game. I believe it was either every Monday or Friday. I can't recall. They had a 5-10 game that they featured 2 or 3 days a week, and I believe a 5-5 game. And this dates all the way back to like Poker Road and Joe Seabach and Gavin Smith and Bart Hansen whenever they first started the product or whatever. That carried all the way through to when Feldman took over in 2019, I guess, which was right around the Stones scandal.
Yeah.
I think he took over actually, I guess it was like 2017.
He took over prior to
Yeah, it was like 2017. He left he left around 2019.
2018,
or like right around the pandemic.
And then pandemics, Hustler was
Yeah.
thinking about getting created. I think.
So when Ryan took over, he closed the gap a lot between live streams and TV poker. He had his first $1 million game eventually pop off, which was 100, 200, 100K buy-in. We had like around $1 million on the table. I think he ran that 3 or 4 times when he was at the Bike. Basically, he bridged the gap between high stakes live streams and high stakes televised poker.
Yes.
And in the interim, Poker Go had obviously cropped up, and they were still doing the TV thing.
They were TV thing for sure.
Yeah, so they were doing Poker After Dark. They bought the high stakes poker
poker
license. They started running that. What's happening? Conrad, one job, man. If you're not going to talk, at least don't be a disturbance. Christ. It's just unbelievable.
It's believable, but frowned upon.
I literally feel like I'm teaching kindergarten sometimes.
Yeah, like with the colored gum. With
Take
the
a
color,
fucking nap.
The color bears.
Take a day off,
3,
mate.
2, 1.
No, please don't take another day off.
Wait, all right.
Taking
fine.
enough
I'll see you
days
tomorrow.
off. But anyway, like what we saw moving forward was the evolution then into Hustler. And Hustler, I've been saying this for a long time, like it's going to be very difficult to keep up the velocity by which they're putting out high stakes poker. And I think we finally hit a tipping point.
It's very fast. They went from like 50-100 to $1 million cash game where everyone buys in for $1 million in 2 years.
Yeah, and the thing is like it wasn't like these were just one-offs. Like they weren't special events like the $1 million cash game at the Bike, which was a different version of $1 million cash
You
game.
just win $1 million on a random Friday.
Yeah, it was just getting $1 million on the table. Now they're actually
stakes
having
Friday.
everyone buy in for $1 million.
It's like high stakes Friday, high stakes Thursday, high stakes Wednesday.
So what we're seeing now, and this is a little bit of the post WSOP lull, but I think that there's a good chance that this is just the way it is moving forward. No Limit Hold'em on TV games is dying quickly.
Yeah, you have access to it almost 24/7 now with live streams.
There's a lot of, well, let me rephrase. High stakes No Limit Hold'em on stream is dying. I think
Specifically cash games, right?
well, kind of both. Nobody's covering high stakes MTTs except PokerGo.
And Triton.
They're partnered. Maybe they're not.
No,
I thought that they had a partnership of some sort, but you're right. PokerGo doesn't do the coverage there. It's
because I mean the
hands.
Triton stuff seems like it's pretty popular right now.
Yeah. But Triton's 3 times a year.
The coverage is also super sick, but yeah.
3 or 4, yeah.
Right, yeah. They have some of the best coverage.
Love Triton.
But yeah, so like say they do 3 or 4 a year, and then the PokerGo tour is another 4 or 5 times a year.
Yep.
So it's like, okay, 6 months out of the year, you'll have a week of events.
Right, so it's not saturated.
Nowhere near. Right. With high stakes, no limit cash, like I said, the velocity of trying to keep it up even once a week, even getting a high stakes game off once a week is a lot. But Hustler was trying to do it multiple times a week. And they're also competing for the same player pool that Bally's is trying to get access to, that PokerGo is trying to get access to, that Poker Night in America is trying to get access to. And don't get me wrong, Ryan has the upper hand in this because he's built a lot of relationships through the LA scene and the home game scene and everything else.
And the game's still run for Hustler for now.
No, that's the thing.
Like the PLO, big PLO just happened.
That's a pivot, right? If you look since pre-World Series, the last high stakes, I mean, I guess maybe they've gotten 1 or 2 off since then with like Rampage and Mariano.
Ethan's played a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, but not many. So pretty much Fridays have been relegated to either replays or now high stakes PLO.
And you think this pivot is happening because the high stakes gamblers want to play PLO more than No Limit?
No. I think it's happening because the key individuals that they relied on to get the Friday games off
are losing money,
are losing too much.
Yeah.
So Airball is just losing way too much, and he seems to be more comfortable with it. Like this is where I'm going with this. Today's No Gamble, No Future that I was supposed to play switched from 200, 400 no limit with me, Helmuth, Brandon Adams, and a few others to 200, 400, 2K ante, half and half, which is almost certain to switch to full PLO.
So you're not playing?
No. And the lineup switched from featuring me, Helmuth, et cetera, to now being JRB, Aussie Matt, Airball, Professor, the Hustler crew, basically.
It turned into the Hustler live stream goes to TV.
Yeah, which is, it makes sense, but you have to understand like the difference here, right? So the game I was going to play was 200, 400, 100K min, no limit hold'em, big blind ante. So I think we were going to do a 500 ante.
Sounds like a great game.
So does this means Helmuth was actually going to buy in for the 100K?
Yeah, you'd have to.
Okay.
But I mean, that's not a lot if we're playing like 500 or 1K ante.
No, I'm just saying that Phil typically has been coming in short to these games.
Right. Yeah, fair. But anyway, the pivot then becomes 200, 400 massive ante, like 2K ante, but it's a 50K buy-in. So what's actually taking place now is a lot of what we've been watching on the Hustler stream PLO, where it's flipping for stacks early, and then maybe the game gets slightly deeper a little bit later. But the whole point is, this is kind of predicated off of what the private PLO games are doing. So like Eric Berger runs a game in town, and they basically all buy in for 50K, in spite of the fact that they're playing the equivalent of 500 1K. And the reason for this is to keep people from going broke, basically, right? There just isn't that much of a skill edge whenever you're sitting more shallow.
Yeah, you're just playing all ins.
Yeah, you're just, you're especially in PLO where equities run really close. You just can't really fillet somebody that is a poor pre-flop player. They're going to lose, of course, but they're not going to lose terribly. Over the long run, they will. But it takes a long time to get to the long run, and that's what game runners care about.
Right.
So the health of this game is actually probably a lot stronger than a deep stacked, no limit hold'em, high stakes game, which is what we're accustomed to seeing.
Yeah.
That Hustler Friday game, we're accustomed to seeing 500,000 big blind stacks, where people are losing the equivalent of 10 buy-ins consistently. Like 400K is swapping hands all the time at 200, 400 Hustler.
Yeah, and you can even check that through the stat sheet that they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
People just.
So is the pivot to keep the player pool intact, or is it pivot because that's what they think the audience wants, or a combination?
It has
of both?
nothing to do with the audience.
Yeah.
So it's not that people want to see more PLO. They want to see more like just all in pots and
for
flips and
stream houses. They just need to put asses in chairs, right?
Yeah.
They need to get games off. If you saw hustlers like talking about running mixed games now
Right. That's
during
like
the week,
it's the hardest thing to do.
right?
Time we're running mixed games during the week?
Yeah, they're not switching the mixed games because they're popular.
Yeah.
When you say mixed games, you mean PLO? Or?
No, I mean like 8 game. And that's not a choice of popularity, right? Like the audience isn't craving to see more 8 game. It's I assume because they have access to a strong player pool that will play mixed on stream.
Mariano's up 1.3 million.
He's the new Garrett.
And it just, fills a day. It fills a day in the week every week for a stream. So.
Yeah, one day, maybe 2 days.
And
It,
not reaching from the player pool of
Right.
200, 400.
Right.
Or whatever.
And if you notice, Max Payne Monday is their most consistent stream because they did a smart thing within the structure.
Wow.
Right? Like they made it such that they built up a cast of characters that were consistent and would always show up. They basically have a pool of 12 to 20 people that are loyal to Max Payne Monday, but more specifically, they capped the buy-in at 4K. So it's a 200 big blind cap, or maybe they capped it at 10K.
For Max Payne?
Yeah.
I think it's more than that.
It might be 10K cap.
Yeah, some people.
Either way,
That's still a lot.
Yeah, either way, they put a hard cap on it so that people can't just come in and buy in for 100,000, cover the table, and obliterate somebody who's in for 4K and ran it up. This is all like pretty critical to stream health, and the health of these games. I don't know, man. I mean, I think that this just speaks even more to what I was saying yesterday, where places like Bally's have a huge uphill. Like PokerGo has the biggest advantage in the world. They're in Las Vegas, Nevada. They have a gorgeous studio that's made for TV. They have a full production crew that's dedicated to getting these games off, 40 or 50 times a year, however often they film. And still, Brent has the hardest job in the industry. Like, I wouldn't want his job
to be game runner, creator.
Speaking of Brent, happy birthday, Brent.
Yeah,
Happy
big shout out to
birthday,
B-Hanks.
Brent.
I would probably need 10x his salary to want to do what he has to do, right? And it's like what's being asked of him is maddening because you have to cater to all the players and give them a product that they want, but you also have to keep the audience in mind and give them a product that they want, right? Like nobody wants to really watch 200, 400, or let me make it even more simple. Nobody really wants to watch like 100, 200, 20K min max, where everybody's just 100 big blinds deep, swapping 10 big blinds per pot.
No, not fun.
Right. Like yesterday's game got off the hook after all the short stacks left and were filled by people who bought in for 20, 30, 40, 50,000.
Yeah. Well, people just want to watch big pots happen, and that can't happen when you don't have the money in front of you.
Right.
From an audience perspective.
Right. And
to be willing to gamble.
Taking that a step further now, nobody, or I should say, people are far less incentivized to want to play televised poker, whether it's streamed or televised later. There isn't a big allure for Brent to hit up a good action player and be like, hey, I'm running 4 days of No Gamble, No Future. Would love to have you on the show. We'll feature you. We'll get you a seat in every single game. The lineups are going to be good, yada, 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 right? All of that sounds great, but where's the value exchange?
It's just like the Alan Keating principle, where he would just be there all the time and now less there.
He was never really there that often.
He was there more often than not.
No,
right?
he played Rob's game, which anybody who has ever been dealt in would want to play. And then, he played that a couple of times. And then I think he played one other stretch, which may have been high stakes poker. I can't really remember.
And it's just because there's not really that incentive to play.
He has zero incentive to play. The only reason why Keating would even consider playing on TV at all, why he went to Hustler a couple of times, is basically to expand his network and to advertise.
Yeah.
There's a reason he plays the way he plays whenever the cameras are on. Not that he plays terribly different when they're off, at least not in my experience, but it's been years since I've played with him. But you don't want to play that way, exposing your whole cards.
Yeah.
You're giving a lot up. So to give a lot up, you have to be getting something in return. And for him, I assume it's getting people to come play with him privately.
Yeah.
Expanding the network, increasing the game health. From my perspective, private games have never been healthier.
Like Bobby Zoom's great.
Yeah, they're all great because they did the smart thing. They all lowered the stakes.
And it's just protected environments also.
So are stream games. You know, you decide, you vet who comes in and out.
Yeah,
What does that mean when someone says it's a protected environment?
Like, not anybody can sit.
Yeah.
So
And that's a good thing?
There's gatekeeping.
Well, whenever you are curating the pool yourself and determining like who's in it and who's not, you, if you're mindful, can be smart about how the money gets distributed.
You don't want Vulture 1, Vulture 2, Vulture 3.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
It's only people that are going to gamble that is like normally allowed in these games.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to give action, get action, whatever, not allowed.
Right, but that's also incredibly true of the stream games.
Yeah, I know.
So
well, now
so there's still the sticking point of like where's the value exchange. In private games, the value exchange is the seat. You're guaranteed a good lineup. If you're a winning player, like you have a fair shot.
Vulture free since 2021.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Where do we think the like these stream games? What's the landscape going to look like in like 6 months from now? Is it going to be?
I don't know about 6 months,
a year,
but I think like a year and a half, we might see it revert back to the live at the bike model.
right? Maybe like there's like one emerges that it like a lot of them fall off, and then we have like one or two that are just like
No, I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think everybody's going to regress to the mean to some degree,
and we're going to just see lower stakes.
Yeah, I think Hustler will lose a lot of their velocity, and they'll get high stakes off occasionally, maybe now monthly instead of weekly.
Yeah.
But their core product is going to be featuring games similar to Max Payne Monday. You know, the 1020 with a gimmick, the anti games, like,
And that's not necessarily a bad thing either.
it's not necessarily bad at all.
It just is a thing.
No, yeah.
The issue seems
doesn't
to
scale,
be,
though.
Right.
Yeah, the issue seems to be that when money runs out, issues happen.
That's always the case with high stakes.
And this is what's happening now.
Yeah.
Is that it's kind of like, oh shit.
High stakes poker took a hiatus for almost a decade between Black Friday and PokerGo
And
getting
it's
the rights.
not because of any
Bless
other
you.
reason besides money.
I mean, well, nobody was willing to produce it.
Why?
Well,
Wasn't
you need recognizable names as well, right?
Yeah,
Like
you gotta be able
If
to-
the Tom Dwans aren't showing up, if the D-Negs aren't showing up, then like.
But wouldn't they always show up or no? Did something happen?
Yeah, that's not why the show died. The show died because it lost all of its online funding. So who
Black
was gonna,
Friday happened.
Yeah, who was going to back it between 2011 and 2017 when PokerGo started?
Game Show Network didn't want it anymore,
Well,
right?
they were being paid to broadcast it. It wasn't the opposite.
It wasn't the opposite.
They owned the licensing or the rights to it or whatever, but like PokerStars was they were buying ad spots.
Got it. They were like, oh, hey, here's money to play this.
Yeah, they were spending like millions and millions and millions of dollars to buy up all the airtime.
Man, I liked when everyone had money.
Yeah, obviously.
Give them money back.
Right, but like, you know, in the interim, like Poker Night in America cropped up, but they were never going to run high stakes poker. They knew their lane. They tried to be a 25-50, you know, wholesome. We're going to go across middle America and stop at all the stops along the way and find the local heroes and advertise them. And that failed very quickly.
The Sean Deeb Matazau slow roll nonsense.
That was episode 1, which
That was pretty good.
it was good. It was great. But also even like in episode 1, they had already abandoned their mission statement.
What was their mission statement?
That they were going to go to like local, like across America, they were going to stop in like local casinos and feature local players.
Right, Poker Night in America just meant like local homies. We're going to go here and then we're going to go here.
Yeah, and they were offering like, you know, you could fly there in a private jet and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, almost everybody there was from Vegas except Deeb, who actually was the local to Turning Stone. But it's like, okay, so you got Sean Deeb. Like, where's everybody else? You know what I mean?
Sean
It's
Deeb
like,
was that show. Like,
it was great.
The other spot I remember is when he got into it with who was the scammer guy?
oh, hashtag King.
When he got into it with hashtag.
Yeah, but that was different. So that was like season 3 or 4 or whatever. And at that point, Poker Night in America had already made a hard pivot away from this mission statement, which they really never abided by to begin with. I've spoke about this many times. Like the first time they filmed in Pittsburgh, I begged to be on the show and they sent me to Reno instead. It's like, okay, well, you guys don't give a shit about actually highlighting the thing that you're claiming to highlight in the mission statement. But by like season 3 or 4, they brought Matt Glantz on as kind of a consultant, which I think is super sharp. And it's crazy to me that, you know, these other stream houses don't have this. I guess PokerGo does with Brent. Brent was a longtime pro. He's very networked and tapped into the community. He knows what's going on.
Somebody to have their finger on the pulse.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. And, at Hustler, I guess, like, to some degree, Ryan has his local player pool to rely on. Guys like, at first it was G-Man. That was his consultant and advisor, and the value exchange was he would get seats. Then it became like, Airball, Mariano, whatever. But there might be a dilution process taking place there, right? Because now clearly the influence is like, well, Airball wants to play short stack PLO. So now they're going to start running short stack PLO, and that might not necessarily be the best for the health of the product or the audience or whatever moving forward.
But do you think that it's good for them just because it fills up a different day? Like
It's not a different day. It's Fridays. Right? You lost your marquee product.
Yeah.
But that's kind of, you have to be adaptable.
No,
I don't fault them for it.
No, of course.
Well, because you can make the argument that now that they are where they are, they can kind of scale back if they wanted to.
But that's the thing is you don't want to. That's the whole point. That was why I was saying like they were growing too fast and too furiously, because you want to try to keep up a pace in growth wise that allows you to scale naturally, especially with YouTube and monetizing the algorithm. You don't want to be a burnout. You don't want to be one of those rise to the top and then crash, because the algorithm really punishes you for it. You know what I mean? And along those lines, it's like when you look at like Poker Night America and Bally's Live, be it the bike or now Tropicana, whatever, they have no consulting, right? And their shows are reflective of that. Their audiences are reflective of that. They're just kind of like firing at the hip and trying to mimic the old Live at the Bike type of. Actually, I don't even know what they're trying to mimic. It's more so, I guess, some bastardized version of PokerGo and Hustler.
If you had Feldman's job, what would you do?
Quit.
It's nobody want. That's a hard job, I will say.
I think,
like,
I think he's worked miracles.
Yeah.
For Hustler, and honestly, I think that there's a good chance that the Jack 4 scandal actually prolonged their ability to keep up the pace the way that they had. I think that without that scandal, and to some degree,
that was
I hate
over
to say
a year
it.
ago now, right?
No, it was in like October, November.
Almost.
I hate to say it, but like losing Garrett might have been the only thing that preserved the show for another 8 months.
Losing
beat them
Garrett?
all.
Yeah.
How's that?
Because people
beat
go
them.
broke too fast.
Yeah, he just takes all the money and
because
then
he's
nobody shows up.
siphoning-
And
I
then
see what
it's
you're
just
saying.
Garrett
Yeah.
sitting there with a bunch of chips.
I mean, they basically just put Mariano and Rampage in his place, and they've won basically the exact same amount that Garrett won, and now we see the game's dead again.
Ethan plus Mariano equal Garrett.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you remember back to last year, right around this time, we were talking in the same vein. The Friday games were dead. Like Poker Bunny was playing, and they were playing like 5-handed. People were walking off of set. They were cutting streams short. They happened to find a new crop of players coming into the fall, which included Robbie and everything else. And maybe that'll happen again. I don't know. But from my sense of kind of being tapped into the private world here and in and in LA, a lot of the action's moving here.
Nice.
There's a game at the Win that's currently running 100, 200 perpetual stand up. So it actually plays probably closer to like 300, 500.
But they don't actually stand up, right?
No, not when it's perpetual. No.
Right. Just always
Perpetually standing.
But that game is built pretty much, the core of that game are all LA regs. I mean, these are all players that are usually running private games in LA. So the fact that they're here now, that takes out of the player pool. And
they have no incentive to stream these games.
Right, that's the thing. There's zero incentive, right? A lot of them are big time action players, but also very dangerous, capable of winning. They're probably lifetime winners. Like these are the people that you want to be a part of your stream if you're building one out, but they're also the people that are toughest to sell, because they're kind of scary to the more conservative recs and regs, which you really need. Like the conservative rec and reg are the backbone to the health of any game.
Okay, how do you incentivize those people to play on a live stream?
Well, you can't without a budget.
Okay.
You just can't without
you
a budget.
To pay them.
Yeah, it's just like app games, right? You need to kick back to the whales, and you need to find ways to give rake back to the regs.
Or just give them a seat if the game's good.
The problem is that I don't think you can barter seats any longer. The games aren't good enough.
Well, okay.
The games are never better than. I haven't seen a single stream game outside of like one or two one-offs that played massive, like the $1 million game, which is what, 501k.
Sure.
Those stakes aren't available privately unless you're like tapped into Keating's network where you're playing house games, right? And even that comes with some risk. But when you're talking about 200, 400 and smaller, I haven't seen a single fucking lineup that was better than the games that are running in like Bobby's Room or at the Wynn or at Aria. Mm-hmm. So when that's the case, you can't barter seats unless you're bartering with somebody who is out in that network. Yeah. And if they're out in that network, they're not good for your game.
Yeah.
So the bartering system doesn't work anymore.
That does make sense.
You're just asking for people to give way too much up to play.
So basically, he's saying that if they're not in that network that you can get to all those games, they're not good for the game.
Yeah, and there's no upside to play on the stream.
Right. If you offer something to a good game, whether it's private or public, if you offer something based off the action you give, the players you can bring, the liquidity that you can loan, any of that stuff, you're tapped into the private scene already, and you have no need to be a part of these stream games.
Right. You're saying, why do I want to affiliate with you and I have this?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't offer me enough.
Yes.
See, what the stream houses should do is start a private game and then say you can get into this private game if you come play on the live stream first.
Well, that's how it kind of was in the beginning.
Yeah.
Right?
That's kind of the idea, right? Yeah. That's how it effectively looks. It's like, hey, this High Stakes Fridays is like a protected environment that we say who gets to play.
I think that's what Hustler did a good job of, is that they, one way or another, convinced their players to be completely loyal to them. The issue is that falls apart at some point.
At some point, they say,
because people lose.
Here's a cool game. Here's other incentives.
Well, it's not that. It's just that.
Or you have no more money.
It's that people will go through losing streaks and then question why they're being loyal to one single place when there are other games that they could potentially play.
Yeah. So why am I only playing here?
Exactly.
I could play somewhere else.
Exactly. And if they're going to get flack for playing somewhere else, like even if it's just some pushback from the higher, like why are you
right? Why are you playing this game on Friday and not here?
Yeah, like I heard you were at the bike last week. Why were you at the bike? I thought you were loyal to the HCL family, that type of thing.
Well, fuck the family.
I mean, it really is a smart way to go about it, because you absolutely need to corner enough liquidity to keep the game health alive. Yeah. And pressuring people to only play at your place of business is a really smart and sharp way of going about that. The problem is it's not sustainable.
You need to keep all the money in your game, especially when you're competing.
Right, but there's just no sustainability to it, right? So at some point you have to relinquish the leash and let people off and let them go wherever they want to go and give them a product that's better than your competitor.
Man, this is not fun for Ryan.
It's awful. We're not just talking about Ryan. This is Brent's job.
Sure, it's everybody's game running.
Wayne's job, Alex's job, Todd Anderson. Like, this is not fun for anybody trying to put these stream games together. And I think at some point they're just going to realize, and the Lodge is a good example. They're not trying to force high stakes.
No, they have it when it runs.
Yeah.
And it's so wild how quickly high stakes, like 100, 200 is not high stakes anymore. Right. In comparison to everything else that's been going on.
Right. And this is no slight to the Lodge, but like those games that they get off aren't good.
They're just
like they're soft for a public.
They're good for the stake level.
Yeah.
Yes, for a public version of that stake.
Yeah, if I was just going to walk in and say I want to play 100, 200.
Their stream is essentially public. Like, I don't think they're turning anybody away who will play 100, 200, 200, 400. That might be the way forward.
Right, you just say, okay.
Run it rarely, but run it open.
You say,
whoever wants to sit.
Here's a game. Well, then there comes the issue Vulture 1, Vulture 2. Right? Because then, like, the whales won't play that game, and the good regs will.
It iterates away from what we're used to seeing, and instead into something closer to Triton.
Yeah, it's the Vulture home game.
Yeah. Well, basically you get a watered down version of like a high level Triton stream.
I mean, what's the incentive for the Vulture to even play that? They don't want to.
Well, the Vulture
they get to play 100, 200.
Yeah, the Vulture would think that they're better than the other Vultures, right? There's the ecosystem there, like people, the reg battle.
Yeah, when you think about people like Art Papazian, who's basically shut out of 100, 200 plus anywhere.
Yeah.
You put a public stream game together, he'll play.
That makes sense.
He'll just always play because he doesn't have access to 100, 200 otherwise.
So I don't care who the other Vultures are. I want to be in the game.
Yeah, there are a lot of people like that. Like a lot of this isn't necessarily true for me now, but like coming up, we reg battled. My 10-20 game coming up was me, Jesse Sylvia, Osmus, Greg Merson, Chance, Benba. We reg battled every single day. You know, JY, like all these guys.
You clock in the work. Maybe someone shows up here and there.
Yeah,
maybe.
Always. There was always 3 seats filled with soft spots, and like, you know, sometimes there weren't. Yeah. Sometimes there would only be 1 seat. Whatever. The game would still run though. Because
at the same time, people do like from like the call it giving action side of things. Sometimes people just want to show up and gamble. So like, okay, like these guys are some of the best in the area. Okay, I want to play them.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Game will run.
That's why public games still exist, but it's also why the scale and magnitude of them are so much lower.
Right. There's not 100, 200, 400 public game anymore.
No.
It's 2040.
Right.
Which is still a huge game.
Yeah. It can be.
Yeah. Like
certainly can be.
You can definitely still win like 6 figures in a week playing these games.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to how it looks versus like the super high stakes stuff, you just like win 6 figures in a night.
Yeah.
And that's what people want to see from an audience perspective. It's like, I want to see someone win and lose houses.
I'm not sure, honestly, what people want.
And
I think that's what also makes their job so fucking hard.
Yeah.
I personally, if you asked the question of like, what would I do if I was in Ryan's shoes? And
quit.
I jokingly said quit. But like, if that were the business I wanted to undertake and I was trying to go about it, or I became the leader of another stream house or whatever,
solve for why stream house.
No, I wouldn't.
Stop.
I wouldn't try to compete by doing the same thing everybody else is doing. Like, I would just try to find ways to be novel, right? Whether that is coming up with some game show hybrid with poker, like the Survivor idea. I mean, I would just throw so much shit against the wall and see what stuck. See what the audiences would resonate with. And it's tough because you can't even really A/B test if you don't already have a built-in audience. So if you're only getting 400, 500, 600 views a night, then it's difficult to know what the audience resonates with. But you just have to do it the same way we do with this podcast. You just have to do it for a year.
There's a try.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know, put a season of Poker Out Loud together. Put a season of Survivor Poker together. Put a season of, you know, some other derivative that you can think of, pure stand-up game, whatever. Like, you just do things that are different from all the other stream houses and hope that the ones that are bigger than you don't care enough to copy.
Or like you kind of have like some strange, like call it like Iron Man cash game where you just like keep it running and like there's a prize for the winner or something.
Run
like,
a rat hole game.
You just try different random stuff and then hopefully some things are
there
cool.
are a ton of ideas that are totally unexplored. Like, you could easily just run a rat hole game where if you play Bally's Live at all in 2023, you have to sit with whatever you left with. And we just keep a log, right? And, you know, the stakes just stay fixed or whatever. Yeah. So your regulars by the end might have like 500,000 on the table. The difficulty with that is that unlike ACR, the money isn't
locked.
It's not locked. Yeah. So like people could just go broke or
ACR
lose, but whatever they lose, but they just lose their seat. That's all.
Who cares?
Sure.
Yeah, right. So if they can't,
I'm sorry. It does suck for the stream though, because like,
maybe
you know that's
then it becomes a failed idea. But the whole point is that you try.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe then it doesn't become a year. Maybe it becomes like if you play in the month of January, you have to bring whatever.
Like you just have like for a month, like on Mondays, it's the rat hole game or whatever. Like you just try shit.
Yeah.
The idea is that who knows if it's gonna be good or not. Like instead of saying, oh, this is not gonna work, you just try.
What I wouldn't try to do is continually compete with the amount of money that's being bought in for, or the amount of money that is switching hands throughout the course of a session.
That's what has been going on now is these people are going to buy in for 100K. Now it's going to be 200K. Now it's going to be $1 million.
Right. And the issue with that is that
you run out of money.
Well, it's not that. It's that you'll never have access to the games that are the most awe-inspiring to the audience. And then you build up a resistance to going backwards. Right? So now that Hustler's giving you the $1 million buy-in game, there's going to be a bit of a resistance whenever you run a 100, 200 game.
Right. It's like this is smaller.
Yes.
This is less entertaining.
Right.
By default, because there's less money on the table.
Right. So they were smart in pivoting to PLO on Fridays in the sense that it's a ton of fucking gamble.
And it's a different game. So it's like, okay, here's a new game for you.
It's a different game and it's a ton of gamble. So people may not necessarily notice that the buy-in's a lot smaller. But a couple months from now, if they now have to switch back to like 100 or 200 on Fridays and the average stack is, call it like 40K, 50K, something like that, people are going to be like, I remember when they were buying it for $1 million.
Dude, that's what Live at the Bike was before Hustler came around. It was like people would just play like about 100K pots. It was like, holy shit, that's a huge pot.
Right.
But now it's like, okay, every 100K pot gets played every 20 minutes.
Right, and that's what I mean. And the issue is that you'll never get access to the stratosphere. You'll never get access to the chairman, to Guy Liberté, and
Right.
these guys that are actually playing like, you know,
Like the
2K,
Andy
4K, 5K, 10K. There are some like massive fucking games that we hear about in folklore,
Like the $5 million cash game is never going to exist.
or the 10 million, right? And it's like,
But they exist in Fantasyland.
they exist somewhere in the world.
Yeah,
They're
that's
just
what I'm saying,
never-
but to us, it's like Fantasyland. It's
well,
never going to happen.
They'll never be on camera.
Do you think that stream poker is going through a reset for Hold'em now? Like we're just going to reset and go back to smaller stakes and then start grinding from there?
I don't know if reset is the right word, or if like we're kind of watching a bit of a death spiral.
Ooh.
The reason why I lean more towards the latter than the former is because there are so many fucking stream houses. So like to Brian's point, when he asked earlier, like, do you think like a bunch of streams will just die and then we'll see somebody win? And the reason why I don't think that's the case is because once you're operational, it's so cheap to continue to run.
And, I
So
mean,
nothing kills it except the lack of people to play.
Yeah.
didn't we already see a stream? Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, didn't we already see a stream win being a Hustler?
But it's regressing.
Yeah.
And that's why I said I think we'll just see a regression to the mean.
Yeah.
Where it's like everybody's just forced to pump out shittier content. And this is true of the virality of all internet stuff. Like we had this period of time where like Vines were the most viral thing in the world. And now the audience is programmed to watch 15 seconds at a time, right? And then Vines died.
Man, I loved Vine.
I mean, you know, the derivative of TikTok and
I get it. It's the same thing.
Instagram
Like you can do
stories and,
like you have short term.
right, but it's regressing back to the mean now. Now we're looking at like 30 to 60 second content, right? Because it was unsustainable to keep that. You know how much content comes out when it's only in 15-second chunks?
Yeah, Vine was 6.
Yeah. So it's like you have
Mine
to.
was 6. Yeah, that's right.
Or it was only 6
It was
seconds?
Yeah, 6
okay,
seconds.
so yeah.
Dude, I fucking loved Vine.
But do you know how much how much noise you have to sift through to get to a signal?
For Vine?
In
Or just in
general,
general?
whenever that much content's being
Oh,
pumped.
oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, some people very quickly became Vine famous, and then some people became Vine famous later.
Right.
And then you find out what's good, what's not good.
Right, but the sustainability of it is nearly zero.
Like, how can you keep making content?
Right, because you can only regurgitate these ideas so many times.
And you have to do it every day.
And eventually, when we're talking about 6-second snippets, like everything runs its course pretty quickly.
Right. Where now, if you want to make a 6-second thing on TikTok, you still can,
Sure.
but it's less likely.
But it's all regressing backwards now, pulling in more long form because it's less about acquisition and more about retention.
Yeah.
Right?
Watch the clip, not just be here.
Yeah. So, you know, I think we're always going to see these cyclical things occurring in an economy where everybody's vying for people's attention. And you want to give them the quick dopamine hit as much as possible. Live streaming poker is so archaic in the sense that it's really fucking long and slow.
Man, they really do hit you with the dopamine, especially with like, it's like, oh, here's PLO night on Friday, and everyone's just like playing all in pots.
Yeah,
every
but
single
that's
hand.
it's so unsustainable.
That's what I'm saying.
It's gonna run its course so fucking
You
quickly.
saw the fucking leaderboard. Tom Dwan's up $3 million.
Well, that was all from the $1 million cash game.
Was it? I mean,
Yeah.
he's doing pretty well in PLO too.
We won just shy of 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot.
Well, I mean, if he wins $1 million in PLO in a fucking 2-week span, 3-week span.
yeah,
That's
but
a lot,
you know, if the game continues to run, like
Look at Huss up
That
there,
won't be
number
the case.
2.
Mm-hmm.
Super
again,
pro.
It's all $1 million cash game.
I know.
Botez representing up there, $500,000.
Yeah.
Mr. Berkey up there in 19.
Ethan's won 1.4? I didn't know that.
Wait, hold on. Time out.
Ethan and look at Ethan and Mariano. They're literally right next to Garrett. they're their own Garretts. They're 2 Garretts
Yeah.
now. That's crazy.
Right. Well, they got to play much bigger, right? They played so many fewer sessions.
Yeah.
Look at Matt Berkey in there with 3 sessions, 409.
Yeah, they got to get you out of there. You're winning too much.
I was the second biggest winner at the time when
Yeah.
it happened.
Oh,
Like,
before all the high stakes stuff.
that shows how quickly it escalated. That was their first 200, 400 game ever.
This was like a year and a half ago, right?
No, this was like way pre.
This was Lucky
Robbie.
era.
Yeah, it was like 2020, end of 2021.
So 2 years ago.
Yeah, a little less.
And now here we are playing that stake effectively regularly.
Every Friday,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
That was that 2-day stretch was the first 200, 400 game that they ran. And then it became the casual Friday stream.
Now, yeah, exactly. Then it became normal. But
Right.
you can't make the $1 million buy-in game normal.
No.
There's no money for that.
there's-
There's no money in
there's only
public land.
Yeah, there's only a regression at this point. So it's like I don't know what this landscape looks like moving forward. I'm happy that I'm not involved because like what's abundantly clear to me is that the way to win is to get the audience to not care about the stakes.
Right. Just be there for whatever happens.
If you can get them invested in the characters, you can get them invested in the game format, you can get them invested in your brand and all these other things, then the stakes shouldn't matter all that much. And I think that that's ultimately the problem that most of these stream houses are attempting to solve, including No Gamble, No Future and High Stakes Poker. It's like High Stakes Poker is a little different because it's only filmed, I think, once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And it carries the legacy.
It's got it's got some substance behind it.
You can always find 8 for that.
Yeah.
Cool. So you have to try to figure out how to get people involved without worrying about the actual dollars that are being played for.
Yeah.
Like when you look at normal game shows like Survivor as a whole,
Right.
the biggest prize in that is $1 million. Like
Yeah.
for poker, people can just win $1 million playing on a Friday buy-in.
And remember, that didn't change, right?
It stays the same. First is always $1
Survivor
million.
is like,
Always been $1 million.
Survivor's like 25 years old. And it was $1 million year one, and it's $1 million now.
Yeah, that was like Big Brother.
It's actually less
Big
'cause
Brother
of
was
inflation.
500,000 all the way up until last year, and they just raised it to 750.
That's
So
crazy.
it's like it wasn't about the
their
money.
progression is
Right.
very low. Where like if a
Yeah.
stream house was in charge, it'd be okay. This year 500K.
No,
got
that's the
traction.
thing, though.
750 million.
There's
5 million.
no incentive for them to raise the prize pool because people are so engaged in the format.
Right. The money,
New characters
the money,
come
the prize
up.
at the end is like the afterthought.
I watch
like, it's
Naked and Afraid
yeah.
religiously. They get paid nothing. They get paid a day rate. There's no prize to win.
Oh, there's really?
It's just pride. Can you survive 21 days on your own?
That
Yeah.
sounds miserable.
Fuck that.
That's it.
Let's start playing poker for prize.
I mean, they get a day rate, but like that's not public.
No,
you know what I
yeah.
mean?
It's
So
usually
they,
like $1,000
I think it's $800
or
bucks.
a week.
No, I think they get $800 a day.
Okay,
But
yeah.
they're there for 3 weeks.
Even
Yeah,
now,
well,
like,
I'm pretty
compared
sure
to
like,
poker.
Yeah, I think like Big Brother, they get like 1,000 a week or something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like,
But they're vying for a
But
bigger
they're playing.
prize.
Yeah, they're
I
playing.
feel like
for-
we're onto something here.
Well, it's the whole reason why Berk keeps saying that you should turn like the poker streams into like some type of WWE characters and
There
stuff.
should be some sort of work, or even if it's not a work, like you should actively be curating characters. Like if I'm going to start a stream house tomorrow from scratch, I would wait like 6 months to go live, and I would be paying people to like workshop
Right.
their characters.
You have like an agency.
Like-
Like, okay, what's happening?
No,
here?
not that. I would have 20 people in the player pool that I plan to run the games around, and I would be workshopping weekly with them what their character is going to be, what they're going to contribute to the stream, what our expectations are of them, and what we can offer them in return.
Without the screaming and saying you're bipolar and
You're basically giving somebody a job in a seat.
yeah, and you pay them a yearly salary.
it's almost like you kind of want actors.
I mean,
But poker players.
I mean, you don't need. It doesn't have to be disingenuous.
Sure.
It can be very genuine. It just needs to be.
just have to be a character. You have to be a personality.
But what keeps
Well, it
people
needs to be
into a certain
curated.
way.
It can't just be these loose instructions of like go
Yeah.
on there and be fun.
Right.
Go on there and talk.
Right.
what keeps people interested?
we saw what happened with that apparently.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the execution on them that really matter.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to put in the time to workshop all of this stuff to actually give people the tools necessary to be the characters that you want them to be, give them the resources necessary to incentivize them to be the characters that you want them to be, you're going to get a shit product. And then you're going to be reliant on the stakes and the money changing hands. So if you just want rich people to gamble, that's great for some period of time until they get sick of doing it in front of the cameras and they can just go do it privately on their own.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that stream games face currently.
And most people don't want to be on stream. Like
No.
they're playing that are playing that big. They
Of course
just,
not.
There's just no
and
reason.
the
for
reason
that.
why none of the ideas that we're throwing out here are actually being executed on is because there's no money in it. You can't come up with a $500K budget.
Right.
Well, A, there's
to
no
do
money
this?
in it, and B, like there's not going to be like any action players that want to do it. Like this would be more curated.
You
upon
pay me
it.
$100,000 a year and give me 4 games a week, I'll do it in a heartbeat.
Well, all right. Like,
The
all right, what I'm
Berkey-nado.
saying is, yeah, like, what I'm
Berkey-nado.
saying is, you'll see you'll see Andy maybe, or like people like that. You're not gonna see fucking, I don't know, the chairman or somebody like.
That they don't have to be a part of the work.
Yeah.
Well, just
You could just get Bill Klein whenever Bill Klein feels like playing.
Yeah.
And he makes the game better.
I see what
and
you're
he just
saying.
gets to be Bill Klein.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You can be Poppin' Man on the stream.
Right? It's not necessary. It's not necessary to
Yes.
build the allure of the people who are.
You need to build a small cast. Like,
Yeah.
and then
Superpower is
and
getting
fill
it
in the
poppin'.
seats within.
The regulars are all that matter. It doesn't matter what the non-regulars do.
Yeah, I've messed
They
that
just
up.
get to come and be a part of the environment,
Understood.
you know? But the onus falls on the people that are on the payroll that are going to be there day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like for Survivor, so to speak, the budget they have for that show is a lot of money. They have a lot of
Yeah.
money for production,
Yeah.
for other things.
And they make a lot of money as a byproduct.
Right, but for poker, that's not how it works.
No.
It's the opposite. They're saying, we want you to play, but bring your own money, and we're not going to give you anything in return.
Correct.
Maybe your friends can watch you
A
play
long,
poker.
long time ago, the offer was fame. And in the world of internet going viral, there's no fame to be had here.
It's not the same thing.
Do you
yeah.
think the only way that this is ever saved is by online poker coming back into the USA?
I don't think online poker would invest in this.
No?
No, because everything's just being broadcast on YouTube. Like, they don't get their advertise. They can't advertise on YouTube
Why not?
because it's gambling. Like, we're not allowed to advertise on YouTube.
I mean, you might see
They could do in-game ads, but that's not the same thing as
you might see more poker on TV if there's more money. If they pump money into the
Possibly.
right.
possibly.
Because they want to get their name out
DraftKings-
there, so they want to advertise on TV, which allows more money to come to TV. But
DraftKings isn't a thing on YouTube?
No.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
what do you mean DraftKings?
Like I'm just
Commercials.
thinking if I've ever seen like a DraftKings like ad
Commercial.
on YouTube.
or ad, yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Us figuring it out.
We're not figuring anything out. We're just figuring out that it's doomed.
Yeah, we're figuring out.
Doomed isn't the
Are
right
you
word.
saying that the system
not the right
system's
word,
not hackable?
Doomed is not.
It needs a fixing. That's all.
Conrad's right. It needs a reset. And
Reset
yeah,
some things for sure.
there, we kind of buried the lead here a little bit, but a recent article released by Wired was talking about the ease of hacking Deckmate 1s and 2s. And we've spoken about this quite a bit in the past. Landon thinks that he was possibly cheated via a Deckmate 2 in Texas. And I've heard plenty of stories in the past too. It was one of the things that we suspected about the Robbie hand at Hustler until we found out they had a Deckmate 1. Now, these hackers were a byproduct of Black Hat, which is a convention that comes to Las Vegas. It happened right before I said DEF CON in the title, and the reason was I searched for the dates because I knew that they were both this week. But then when I searched the dates, Black Hat said it was in October, and I was like, oh, it just must be wrong. It must have just all been DEF CON. Anyway, they did a presentation at this Black Hat convention. I actually got to play with two people who were in attendance, and I spoke with another via DMs. So a lot of it just echoed what the Wire article said. And the real fear, I guess, or the real point of security that they were able to detect is that there's an exposed USB port on the face of the Deckmate 2. And for anybody who's ever been in an empty poker room and able to just kind of see how Deckmates are fit into the table, that would be exposed to the 1 seat on most tables, the 9 seat if not. So the Deckmate is usually placed either left or right of the dealer, generally left because most dealers are right-handed. And just even playing the other day, I could touch the Deckmate without anybody detecting me doing so. And the issue then becomes, for anybody who read the article, there's a short 2-minute video in there. We could potentially run it, but I think that there's an ad in front of it, Guap. So if you do run it, make sure that gets out of the way first.
Is this on YouTube?
No, it's in that Wired article that I sent.
You didn't send it in. For what?
Just go on Twitter, Berkey's Twitter. It's with
I'll
today's
just send,
post.
I'll send it.
The
now.
Burke NATO's.
I'm pretty sure Conrad sent it last week sometime, but it's okay. There, sent.
And you said the ad is at the very beginning?
No, you have to scroll down. It's midway through the article, and there's an ad at the beginning of the video. So try not to run that. Anyway, basically what they demonstrate is that it's very easy to create a hackable device, very similar to what we saw, and this gets confused all the time, the difference between RFID and the infrared.
Yeah.
So the infrared is people get marked decks in into the game that basically have an infrared marking on the bridge of the cards. And what they do is they set a fake device called a phone of some sort, key fob, a million different ways that they can hide it, and it has an infrared sensor in it, right? That just immediately reads the deck. If you're wearing headphones, you could have it audibly tell you like who has the winning hand and all this other stuff. This is a little bit different. It still requires your phone, but only in the sense of needing an app in order to get the information. What ultimately ends up happening is basically you plug in this Raspberry Pi device into the Deckmate 2, which that is an Android operating system. From there, you know, assuming that you're sharp, you're able to you're able to have this app connect to the USB device, and then you have an interface, and you can choose whether or not the deck is cut. So obviously, the way that we would like to avoid this cheating, because the thing about Deckmate 2s is they have a camera inside of them, so they can order the deck however they want, right? What you're actually doing is you're tapping into that camera sensor, and you're seeing the order of the deck through which it's shuffled.
So you're not setting cards. You're just
correct
realizing what what it looks like.
Right. And they were saying they haven't had enough time to play with it yet, but they think that they could order the cards also with a hackable device.
Okay.
But which would be just as good, I guess. It doesn't really matter because you're always going to need to rely on the app based off the fact that the deck gets cut.
Yeah.
So people naively say like, well, if the deck gets cut, then the order changes and now you don't know. Not true, my friend.
Exactly.
Because it would require.
But wait, there's more.
So
it just reads from
Yeah,
when.
you know, right? You know, so
you
once you
just need
see
key
your two cards,
right?
Yeah.
So what happens is now if you choose that the deck got cut, you basically just put in a key card of like your two card, like whatever your two cards are or whatever the flop texture is, and now it knows the order of the deck from there.
Basically, your first card you got dealt off.
right.
You could just click that in, and then it knows all the cards that are after that because
Correct.
you just cut it once, and not like you riffled it.
If somebody from the outside is doing it, then they can just put in the flop and would have the rest of the run out.
Yeah,
There you
correct.
go, that
So the easy way, I spoke with a few floor people, and obviously the number one easy way to remedy this is to close off the USB port. So I believe that they're actively taking precautionary measures and putting like tape over the USB port so it's not accessible. Because it's actually like pretty important to do this because the thing is like you don't need to.
Is it under the table?
Yeah.
So like if you're sitting in the one, you could somehow like have your hands under there and then have access to it.
Yeah.
Plug
Like
it right in
sneak.
without anybody seeing.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that
The cameras can't see it because it's under the table.
right. And you don't need to leave it there, right? You can just plug it in and unplug it as you wish.
You can sneak palm it.
Oh, right.
You can
Right.
It only
unpalm.
works when it's plugged in.
Yeah, but like you don't need to leave it there overnight. Is
Right.
my point.
No, you just plug it in.
So it's not
do
like they
your-
can just
yeah.
inspect the tables once or twice a
Right.
day. You
Right.
know. So the easy fix here is you block off the USB port, and then secondarily, I don't know if any rooms plan on implementing this, but it should be a riffle then a cut. So if you riffle then cut, it basically takes out the ability for you to access perfect information.
Right.
Wait, why is that?
Because you're
Because
riffling.
now
Because
the
you're riffling,
entire
yeah.
order of the deck changed.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
The problem is
I
this
got you.
isn't
I
standard
understand.
protocol for dealers.
No,
Yeah.
of course not.
From-
no,
right,
they
because-
just they pull it out of the machine, they cut, and they deal.
Yeah.
Right, I see what you're saying.
I get it.
Yeah. So what is the purpose of the USB port?
I'm not sure.
This, like in general,
There's
We don't
one.
know.
I'm sure there's a purpose to it. I don't know enough about Deckmates to know why it's there.
This would be
Right.
my question: is why they have a camera inside of the
The
deck.
camera is actually really important. The power of the Deckmate 2 is pretty phenomenal from the casino side of things because you
Let
have to remember
if
it's
a
not just
card's
poker.
removed and right?
Yeah, it's not just poker either, right? They're using these on table games and stuff like that. So being able to sort the deck, being able to know if it's a 52 card deck, being able to know like if there's a duplicate card, all of these things are prevented
Right.
whenever you have a
You can-
camera.
You can
inside.
sort it like it can put the deck in order.
Yep.
You
So-
can use the Deckmate not for just
That's
poker.
interesting.
Correct.
You can just use it for whatever card.
Right, but
game you
even
want.
just for poker, it's like really helpful to have
to know there's 52 cards there, to know
there
there's
aren't
no
two aces
duplicate.
of spades, that you know all of these things are kind of cared for.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
also, I think it's like 3 or 4 times faster than the Deckmate 1.
Right, like the technology advance is call it more beneficial than the risk it provides,
Should be, yes.
and
It's not in a non-gaming environment,
not yet. It's not
Do
right?
we
Like in a
know-
home game environment, I would never play with a Deckmate 2.
correct.
Do we know? Oh yeah, for sure. That'd be the worst.
Yeah, it's just
do
too
we
many
know
people
which
have
rooms
access.
are using one and which rooms are using two?
I know Arya and Bellagio both have Deckmate 2s. World Series has Deckmate 2s. I think most have upgraded now to Deckmate 2s.
Okay.
If I had to guess. Hustler was still using a Deckmate 1, and they did say that that's hackable, but it requires a lot of manipulation. So it's very similar to like a home game. Whoever's operating the table and or shuffler would have to actually be willing to compromise it in order to hack it. So it's not totally off the table. There's, an outside chance that somebody like an inside job type of thing, right? But like of all the ways to manufacture an inside job on a stream game, that's not the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Just tapping into production would be the lowest hanging fruit, as we saw in the possible case. So that's kind of the update on this. I know people have been wanting to hear our thoughts on it. Wait, what?
So we're learning now. We're learning about this USB port. We're learning that there's a lot of potential nonsense. Like in the sense of like there's ways to solve the nonsense very quickly. Like the whole riffle cut does a good job of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine that it does.
Yeah, it does.
This should just be implemented everywhere then. I mean, because it basically means that it can't be detected at all, right? Like there's just no possibility, because if you riffle it, you mess up the order, and then...
Yeah, I know Live at the Bike, before they shut down, were always executing a riffle before a cut. And I think that they were just basically getting ahead of this, but that was very easy to control because there was only one table. When you're talking about training an entire staff now to do something that's out of the ordinary, there's a bit...
Learning
it's
curve.
a little resource intensive. There's some learning that needs to take place there, right? And it's also one of those things that players would need to monitor it and probably wouldn't notice very often if the dealer just went back to their standard procedure.
Right. You've been watching the dealers do this your entire career.
But it's also a really easy fix.
Super easy.
Yeah.
Super easy. And obviously just precautionary, but also not easy to police, right? Because like I'm not going to notice. I'm not going to be paying attention.
No.
Right, because
blocking the USB port is worth a lot.
Right, of course. Yeah, that's probably
both can still happen.
Yeah. I think like probably the best thing to do. I'm wondering if there's something that they could actively monitor. So like actually take like something and plug it into the USB port.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And then if it's removed, they're alerted.
Pops up, or something like that. Yeah.
That seems like the smart thing to do.
Like a wee.
Well, it doesn't need an alarm. It could just alert an app.
Complete alarm system.
No, I like full alarm
I like
system.
the full. Yeah, someone tries to mess with it, they pull it out, and it's just like lights are shining down on the red lights.
Enemy spotted.
Yeah.
Enemy spotted.
It's as bad.
Five guys with suits come up, drag the person away.
It's like that day we were playing with
now you
DiCaprio.
can't leave.
It's like the day we were playing with DiCaprio, and the kid just like casually slides his camera up and then takes a picture with the flash on.
Amazing.
Man, I would rack. I would just left. I would want to die in that fucking moment for sure.
It's like, have a good night, guys.
It's like,
I'd be like, well, that was embarrassing.
Yeah. Think how many times that's happened to Leonardo DiCaprio, though.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter at all.
It don't look good, cuz.
He's used to the
doesn't look good.
paparazzi in his face. And
Nobody wants to ever get used to that.
No one be scorned like the 25-year-old random Leo DiCaprio poker player.
Yeah. All right, that's going to do it for us today, guys. Don't forget, we do have an academy coming up September 1st through the 3rd. Still a few seats available for that. If you guys are interested, head over to academy.solveforwhy.io. Also, we have a new episode of On Second Thought up. We forgot to play the teaser for it, so we'll do that for you tomorrow. But if you guys are interested in watching episode 1 and 2, they are now currently live on the site. You can find those at solveforwhy.io. All you have to do is sign up for the all-in access pass. Free 2-week trial for anybody who hasn't tried it already. Otherwise, it is $49.99 a month. You have 9 full seasons of Poker Out Loud to watch, as well as all the On Second Thoughts that accompany those seasons. Thank you guys so much. We're going to be back tomorrow evening. I'm playing Bellagio during the day, so we'll see you guys around 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. East. We'll see you guys then.
Later, squad.
Late night pod.